may fire that governor, but in fact Karzai was the guy who chose him in the first place. And so there are some signs and some steps that we can, I think, build upon, especially as we get into the nitty-gritty business of this apprenticeship concept with the Afghan security forces. We're going to learn a lot more about the quality and performance of their individual commanders and be able to report that information back to Kabul, to these relatively good ministers I just mentioned, who I think are beginning to take more remedial action.
All right, now to Sonny, who's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Good morning, you're on the air, sir. Go right ahead.
Good morning. Thanks, Diane. My concern is that we have a clear and a very well-founded strategic policy to deal with the public relations situation with the Afghani people so that we don't end up inflaming the Taliban's ability to recruit and to grow the anti-American and anti-government insurgency there that will surely come as we up our forces in Afghanistan.
What kind of plan do you believe is in place, Ambassador Sherman?
Well, I think this is an excellent question. As I said, I think we'll hear from Secretary Clinton a great deal about this today, and I hope in the days to come, because, you know, one speech and one congressional testimony is not nearly enough. There's going to have to be a full-time effort to share information, not only with the American public, but with the rest of the world to ensure other NATO troops. But I think that we will see all kinds of things happening on the ground, both in Pakistan and in Afghanistan, things like energy, water, day-to-day needs of living, in an effort to say to people that, in fact, these changes will deliver something to people's day-to-day lives. If we can't do that, if all we are seen as are a military occupation, which right now I don't think we're seen as, but there's a risk that we will as we increase this troop surge, we will be in trouble. So the president, I think, has decided, and I think correctly, that it is in our vital national interest. It is worth this one very carefully calibrated effort to see if we cannot, in fact, really degrade al-Qaeda, really send a signal not only in Afghanistan but in Somalia and Yemen and elsewhere that there will not be safe havens for al-Qaeda anywhere in the world. It is a tough road ahead. No one knows whether it will succeed, but I think it is worth this effort.
Colonel Macgregor, what about that relationship, building that relationship with the Afghan people themselves?
Well, I don't think there's much chance for anything good to happen with the Pashtun. As I said earlier, they represent the 11 to 12 million, the majority. They're not going to cooperate with us. The Pashtun, but all of the peoples that live in Afghanistan, remember, they've survived 40 years of war, bloodshed, and destruction. They're going to be very skeptical of anybody who shows up and says, I'm here to help you, especially when it's extremely difficult to deliver on those promises in a short period of time, like the one that the president has outlined. So I don't see much hope for this at all. I mean, the Pashtun are very different people with a very different mentality. You might as well talk to people who live on the other side of the universe.
All right, to Nancy, who's in Lebanon, Ohio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Diane. Thank you for taking my call.
Surely.
I'm so disappointed in this strategy. I believe this is a terrible mistake. I don't believe the United States has any credibility in this part of the world. On the one hand, we say Karzai's government is corrupt, and on the other hand, we have the CIA funneling his brother money. It was the same thing in Pakistan with Musharraf. We spent a tremendous amount of money there, and he became a dictator. He disbanded the Supreme Court. He took over the military. We just have no credibility in this part of the world, and we are not going to be. We have terrorists in al-Qaeda in Somalia and Thailand and Germany and Spain. We cannot continue to be a police state for the entire world. This is going to cost an awful lot of American lives. My son is in Iraq currently with the 107th Battalion, and I, as somebody that, strongly supports the United States military, I think this is a terrible decision. We cannot win, and I believe this will make President Obama a one-term president.
And Nancy, we will all hope for your son's safety and the safety of all others there. Thank you for sharing with us. Ambassador Haas, What about the cost, first in dollars and in human lives?
Well, this the direct cost, as you say. The extra 30,000 troops will probably cost upwards of $25-30 billion a year. 100,000 American troops, therefore, will cost at least $100 billion a year. Over time, it'll cost more than that, given the long-term factors, say, of health care. And the rest is obviously the military cost of tying down all those troops. But also, people forget, Diane, there's the time that the president and his senior aides are devoting to this, and it's what economists call opportunity cost. All the time and resources being devoted to Afghanistan, and you have to ask yourself, is this the best use of the president's time, given the entire agenda that he has, be it the economic agenda, other domestic issues, or other international issues? And I just find it remarkable. Here we are 20 years after the Berlin Wall has come down, and what were or are the two biggest foreign policy involvements of the United States? First, Iraq under the 43rd president, and now it increasingly looks like Afghanistan under the 44th. And I would just say that's historians or analysts would have found it hard to predict that this is where the United States would have decided to have placed so much of its resources, be it time or military or our young men and women. And that, to me, it's not talked about a lot, but it's the strategic emphasis that I think is suspect here.
Ambassador Richard Haas, he's president of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's author of A War of Necessity, War of Choice, a memoir of two Iraq wars. And you're listening to the Diane Rehm Show. Want to go back to the phones? Let's go to Pinecrest, Florida. Jeff, you're on the air. Go right ahead. Jeff, are you there? Okay, how about to Robert, who's in St. Louis, Missouri?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Robert.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about actually two things you said since I've been on the phone. One was about is it worth it, and also the cost. And I just wanted to propose the possibility of mandatory military service. I think that would change the equation somewhat with respect to the cost.
Colonel Macgregor.
Well, the caller's right in one sense. It would definitely change the strategic equation. I think we would be out of Iraq and Afghanistan quick time because the American people have long since walked away from these interventions. We've managed to intervene over the last 20 years lots of places because we didn't have a draft. Now, I'm not advocating it, but I think the caller's onto something. As for cost, a draft force would be much more expensive.
Ambassador Sherman, why did President Obama avoid benchmarks?
I think he avoided benchmarks not because in the planning that's been done, people did not look at them. Of course they have, and my guess is that there's a pretty detailed overview of what is expected at what pace, what we're trying to do, how many military and police, Afghan military and police get created, how quickly, how the deployments go forward. But I think what he was trying to get across to the American public last night is, why are we doing this? What are the limits for doing it? And as he said, at the end of the day, our power comes from our prosperity. He wants to turn his time and attention to that as first and foremost.
And let's hear a closing comment from President Obama.
It's easy to forget that when this war began, we were united, bound together by the fresh memory of a horrific attack, and by the determination to defend our homeland and the values we hold dear. I refuse to accept the notion that we cannot summon that unity again. I believe with every fiber of my being that we, as Americans, can still come together behind a common purpose.
Do you believe that, Ambassador Sherman?
I am an optimist. I believe in America. I believe in the American people, and I do think we can come together in unified purpose. We want to protect and extend the prosperity of our nation to everyone in our own country, and we hope for that for families all over the world.
Ambassador Wendy Sherman, she's Vice Chair of Albright Stonebridge Group, Special Advisor to President Clinton, Colonel Douglas Macgregor has also been here in the studio.